How does one get from being an agent to going to become and serve as the president of National Association? Do you like the ad campaign? The alternative option that you've said this, is Chapter 11 bankruptcy, or was chapter before the proposed settlement, right? What's the power dynamic? What decisions are you able to make versus the CEO? What's the conversation with the DC people, the politicians? What's your opinion on just the salaries for staff? Let's be clear here, Kevin. You know, it is what it is. You said, I'm sorry. Is NAR covered on the copycat lawsuits? Why did that access go away after 50 years of it being available to members? Are there too much politics in the association, local and national? Appreciate it, but the great opportunity to sit here with Kevin Sears, the National Association of Realtors President. He is a member as well. He's been a member for a long time in the sense that he's an agent. He's many of you are listening right now are an agent, a team leader, a broker, team member, and you fit into that category.
I'm a practitioner, just like your listeners. I wake up every morning unemployed. And on a daily basis, I'll work with buyers, sellers, tenants, and landlords. And, just got to figure out what we get to do to make the next deal to feed the family.
Absolutely. And congratulations on your sale. You just sold a independent brokerage, Massachusetts, 50 plus years. Yeah. And not a lot, because you've seen it all, not a lot of independent brokerages can stand the test of time like that. Obviously, you said it on stage today, your time is consumed now. And you're probably flying all over the country.
Thank you. We're excited about the next chapter, joining Nykia Realty. My brother and I have known Anthony a long time, have admired his business acumen, the brokerage that he runs, and really the products and the tools and the resources that he offers to his agents. And so we were happy to join forces with him and welcome him to Springfield. And I know that we're going to have a tremendous opportunity for growth. But to the other point, yes, I have been on the road a bunch. And what I was looking at, I just want to share this with you. So today is day 15 of a 20-day road trip. And so you and I were trying to connect and everything. And I said, I won't know my schedule till I get there.
Yeah.
Well, so when planning the trip, this is a screenshot from the website of the hotel. They have laundry facilities on site, right?
Yes, yeah.
Well, so I check in and I asked the front desk, I said, okay, now where are the laundry machines? I've got some laundry to do. And they said, no. And they gave me a piece of paper and they said, we send it off site to launder your stuff or dry clean. I'm looking at the list, and the list, $4.50 per pair of underwear. So I just want to let you know that Sunday afternoon, I spent a little time at the 68th Street Laundromat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which was right next to Circle K. So I got myself a Coors Light, and I nice little Sunday afternoon, had a beer, did some laundry, and the glamorous life of traveling as an NAR officer. I'll tell you, it's not my first time in a laundromat while I've been on the road. I know it won't be my last time, but after 13 days on the road, I needed to clean some clothes
and have a cousin Larry. That's what I used to call him in high school, the Coors Light, cousin Larry.
Oh, okay.
The drinking age back then was 16. So, Kevin, no, I really appreciate it. And you're a common guy in the industry. So, I mean, I think that story speaks to it there. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, you're a common guy in the position that you're in, and you can't speak to things that you can't control. You're one person. I do believe in open conversations in this industry. And
and what I told you is you can ask me anything you want. If I can answer it, I will. If I can't,
that's right.
I'll say so.
And that's going to be the deal here on this pod. If there's something that Kevin can't answer because of a legal reason or whatever the reason may be, that's going to be the deal. Everybody's going to be able to grow more. Talking about growing, like the agents that need to change and be able to need to see the future, need to have this open line of communication. So your just willingness to do this, we can't thank you enough. So before the announcement of our merger with Nykia, I did an event in Boston with him. I was on stage back in January, and one of the things that I talked about, I said, listen, there are 1,000+ agents, realtors in the room. I said, what I do know about realtors is we're resilient, we adapt. I said, but now is the opportunity to embrace the change
And if you're not going to embrace it, then it might be time to go, because change is coming. And obviously, based on the settlement from March 15th, yes, the Ides of March, that there are some changes. And I think that the good agents, the good realtors, the professionals who know their value and can clearly articulate their value, they're going to prosper. And so I'm hoping that everyone that's listening to this or watching this podcast is going to be one of those agents for change that will prosper.
That's right. Yeah, and we want to help, obviously, bring that conversation forward. Let's just get started with your journey into becoming the National Association of Realtor president. If you go back on officers, there is a long. It doesn't seem like you get to this level without working up the ladder, so to speak. Where the most recent 2022 report, you're making like $1,500 as a first elect back in 2022, and so you see these names over the years kind of climb the ladder. How does one get from being an agent to going to become and serve as the president of National Association?
Yeah, so I just said it on stage here at T3. I told people I've been in real estate since 1971, right? But licensed and a realtor since 94. And in 1994, when I passed the licensing exam, my broker, my father, told me to grab my checkbook, to go to the local association, fill out the application, pay my dues, and join 3 committees. So my broker was engaged in the association and believed in the association, that he wanted the agents in his office to participate. And I will tell you, it was a great experience as me as a newbie, serving in a volunteer capacity for the association. But that's really where it started. You don't just go from getting your license to being in leadership at the National Association of Realtors. There is something to be said about paying your dues, literally and figuratively, but also volunteering. And so I volunteered at the local association on the 3 committees, as I said. Before I knew it, I was volunteering at the state association and on their government affairs committee. That was my wheelhouse, was on the government affairs side, advocacy. Became a director for both. And in 2005, I was local president, 2010 state president. And I've been involved with the National Association of Realtors since 98. That's when I first became a federal political coordinator for Congressman Neal in the 1st Congressional District in Massachusetts. And I was his FPC until I won my election, until 2022. After I became an officer, then I could no longer serve as his FPC. So my brother, Brian, is his FPC now. But so my involvement with the National Association of Realtors has been long. 2003 was my first committee assignment. I'm not going to talk about all the committees that I've served on, but what I will tell you is serving on the committees, volunteering for work groups, task force, doing all that stuff, it opens up doors, right? So long as you do the job, you do the work, you're prepared, it will open up doors. And 2011 was the first time I was chair, and I was chair of RPAC, and that was back when RPAC was just one committee. And since that time, the Realtor Party as we know it has grown and expanded, and we have more RPAC committees. But I've chaired a handful of committees at the National Association. I've chaired a handful of work groups and PAGs, presidential advisory groups. I served as vice president of government affairs for Bill Brown in 2017, and I was a presidential liaison for John Smaby in 2019. So, I think if there's anything that I can say to folks who are looking to get involved in the association, please do it. We need different thoughts. We need different ears. We need different eyes that are reviewing material. And we need a diversity of thought in the room to make sure that we're doing the best thing we can for the members. But the key to success is being prepared. If you receive information in advance, read it, be fully engaged, and don't worry about what's next, because if you do a good job there, something else is going to find you. Other doors will open. And so I've been a firm believer in that, and have loved being able to have an impact and help steer our association during all different sorts of challenging times.
Like anything else, how important are those relationships in the association to be able to maybe, advance and climb the ladder? or do relationships have nothing to do with it? What's your take on that?
Just like our business, real estate is a relationship business, so is the association world. So I told you about a few of the different opportunities I've had to serve in leadership, and several of those opportunities allowed me the opportunity to travel the country, to talk about the Realtor Party, to raise money for our PAC. And what that does is that gives you the experience with other members across the country. So I love telling people that, if my kids are traveling anywhere in the country, and actually some parts of the world, but anywhere in the country, if they're driving, they have an issue with their car, I could pick up the phone and know a realtor within an hour of wherever they are, and that realtor is going to go help, right? We're a relationship business, but the association and the politics in the association is a relationship business also. And so I've had the great opportunity to serve, to travel for the association, to do all of those things for the Realtor Party, and establish the relationships of people who see the work ethic that I have, and the product that can be produced by hard work.
You mentioned politics in there. I'm glad you said it. I didn't, so now I could go back to it. Are there too much politics in the association, local and national, on who gets seated in what spot? Have we swung the pendulum too far in that direction?
So for a long period of time, we had uncontested elections. Is that the best thing for the association? Maybe not. And then all of a sudden we had a whole bunch of contested elections. So the politics of it comes to the forefront, right? All of a sudden people are seeing it. Okay, there's campaigning. And yeah, these are some sophisticated campaigns because you do want to get elected. You're not going to run for something not to be successful. But, the good news is that the members that have been involved in the different races have been respectful. And this is the reason that I believe I'm the best person for the job, right? So it's unlike the national politics where there is
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Right? It's talking to the members and having the conversation about why you believe that you are the best person. And there's politics involved with that. There is. But, it'll be interesting to see how the pendulum shifts to contested and uncontested races moving forward, because we just got off the heels of having several contested races. And sometimes there could be a little fatigue from the members. So I wouldn't be surprised if going forward there's a healthy mix of both.
What's the control dynamic like right now with, you're the president, Nykia Wright is the CEO. I thought that on the face was interesting because she was not somebody from the inside. It was truly somebody who had a media background. Certainly that's important right now in today's landscape. What's the power dynamic? What decisions are you able to make versus the CEO? How does that work?
Yeah. So, and Nykia has a fascinating background. So she was from the media world, but it was the Chicago Tribune, and she went in and she saved that and help turn that around. So, so she certainly has a skill set that was important for us. At the end of the day, Nykia is in charge of the staff. Plain and simple. So if there are staff issues, she handles it as the CEO. Decisions that are made for the membership, well, the leadership team, it starts with the leadership team. It can go to executive committee or the board of directors, but the volunteers will steer the ship, give the ship direction. But once we've charted the course, it's up to staff to get us there.
Okay. So she runs staffing, and then you're making decisions, or is this is a collaborative effort between the two?
We'll ask the question a different way. I'm not making any decisions on staff.
Yeah. And she's not making any decisions on direction?
Oh, no. She sits in on our leadership team meetings. Absolutely. Okay. Oh yeah. There's a collaborative effort there.
Okay,
yep, no doubt.
So she's involved. Why haven't we heard more from her in the last, since she's been seated? So
she's been out there. She's done some videos. She has been done a little bit of media stuff, but ultimately, when there's stuff in the media and the quotes that are press releases that are being put out, she is quoted in several of them. But I'm the president of the association. I'm the supposed to be the chief spokesperson for the association.
And you're the closest to the member, being somebody who's been
so.
in that
And the
position.
good news for Nykia is, we signed her in an interim capacity. I had a conversation with her back in February, and we've got the Culture Transformation Commission that is doing some good and some hard work about how do we improve the culture at the National Association of Realtors, which I believe we've turned a corner on, and we can get back to that if you want. So we were in settlement talks. We had the Culture Transformation Commission, and so I had a cup of coffee with her. We were in Chicago before a meeting. I said, Nykia, I've got a question for you. I know how long that you were expecting to be here with us, but there's still some more stuff that needs to get done. And so I need to ask the question: how long can we have you for? How much longer can we borrow you for? Because we signed a short-term lease with her, right? And she says, Kevin, I'm so glad that you asked me that question, because there's so much that still needs to get done. And I was hoping that I could be here to be part of that, but I didn't want it to seem self-serving. So we have extended her contract through the end of the year. Now that's going to allow us, now that the settlement is behind us, the dust is starting to settle. We got preliminary approval from the judge today. So now the leadership team and I can focus on finding a permanent CEO. And so we'll probably be getting some news out about a new search committee that will be put together to find a permanent CEO.
Is she an option for that permanent position, or do you think it will go back to what it's typically been on the CEO level, people from
she and I
from inside?
Yeah, she and I haven't had the conversation if it's something that she's interested in staying for. She has other businesses. She has a startup that she's involved with. And who knows, there might be another situation where she can go in and save a company that's in crisis, given her fantastic skill set. But if she's interested, we'd love to have the conversation, but that's for her to say, not for me.
So this would be a 2025 move to get a new CEO.
Well, we have Nykia at this point under contract through the end of the year. So I would expect that the CEO search, if we can get it started in May, would be a 4 to 6 month process. So hopefully we'd have somebody named, so there'd be a little transition period with there. But one of the things I'll tell you, we're not going to force it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make sure that the search committee and the leadership team, that we are very deliberate on the moves that we make, and who we're going to hire. We need to make sure we have the right person.
It's got to be the right. It's an expensive hire. In 2022, everybody knows the numbers because they're public, and we only go back to 2022. Bob Goldberg, who was CEO then, was making just shy of $2.6 million. So it's a significant investment on whoever gets the position, whether they start lower than that number or, around that number. I know Bob's numbers went up over the years. Obviously, that there's a scale there. Speaking of some of the numbers that we invest as a membership, certain you've gotten the question, so you probably have an answer for it. It's not a decision that you've made, something that has been going on for years. It's the marketing budget. In 2022 was Havas marketing group. You go back, Havas is on the list maybe 5-6 years. There's another name. I don't know if it's Havas and they switch names, but it's always around the same ballpark, 40 to 50 million. In 2022 is 45 million.
Yeah. So if you think about the special assessment that we have for the dues, it used to be, what was it, $35? I think we increased it last year. And so that is a special assessment on top of the dues that is specifically for our ad campaign. And that current ad campaign is That's Who We Are, right? And so this year...
And Havas is the one that does
previous,
Who We Are.
Previous. We have a new...
previous now, but 2000... Who We Are, did Havas start it?
I think that's been around 5 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
These aren't decisions you made.
I don't know who started, who didn't, but
these are questions.
Those dollars, those dollars
are
is specifically earmarked for the communications plan to consumers, consumer communication, and so that money is spent to produce, but also the ad buys. And so that's where you see, whether it's digital, social, on the radio, TV, you're going to hear the commercials that we have.
Do we have data on those commercials, the billboard, the commercials, the radio, that correlates to impact for member? Okay, here's Who We Are commercial. We've put it out there. We're spending the money. And then do we have any data with 1,000 Watt, who I'm sure you're familiar with 1,000 Watt? They're here, Brian Bayero and Mark Davis, and they did a study asking consumers how many understand difference between realtor, and this is the point of the campaign, right? And real estate agent. Overwhelmingly, consumer didn't have the right answer. So do we have any data?
That's why we're so protective of the trademark.
Yeah, and so do we have any data? We spend $45 million a year.
There's obviously
what's
data.
The benefit?
There's obviously ad campaign data. How many folks it reaches, all that stuff. The direct correlation, I don't have the answer off the top of my head for you.
Okay, yeah, and I appreciate that. I actually didn't expect it to have it, but I think agents wonder that. It's like, okay, agents look at the number, and it's like, that's $50 million that we put up. Am I getting to help serve more clients?
I'll disagree with you a little bit. I don't think agents look at the number, but one of the things that the agent on the street can say, that's what I get for my dues dollars, is that ad campaign, because that's something that they see on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And so the question isn't, the amount. The question is, can we do more?
Yeah. Do you like the ad campaign?
I do. I like it, and we've adjusted it this year to be more consumer-centric rather than agent-centric.
Yeah.
Because I think that's part of what we need to do is tell the story and tell our story, but also tell the story of the consumer. And one of the things I think we started talking about this. Now I might be confusing if when I was on stage, but one of the things that fascinates me is in the early '90s when the consumer advocates came out and fought for buyer agency. They fought for it. And then everything we've gone through over the last 5 years, I just question, where are those consumer advocates? Because we brought in buyer agency so that there could be true professional representation for consumers on both sides of the transaction. And all of a sudden, the consumer advocates weren't there saying, no, this is the best system. We are the best system in the world. But I digress.
Yeah, I love what you said there, putting it back onto the consumer. I think that's who we are. And I do think the campaign goes back 5 years ago. It really did fall flat because I've never heard a consumer say that that's how they got connected with a great agent to serve. And obviously, if we don't have any data on that, that's hard to even prove. But that's just a theory.
Yeah, and so it's let's just talk about the anecdotal stuff, right? One of the other biggest benefits that the average member on the street can point to for their dues dollars is our advocacy efforts, right? And so if we have a strong ad campaign, consumer ad campaign, that elected officials will hear and see as well. And then we continue our efforts with the Realtor Party and our advocacy, whether it's in Washington, D.C., in Boston, Hartford, or any of the state capitals across the country, or in the small cities and towns. What we're able to do to help effectuate change to make it easier for folks to buy, sell, lease, and transfer real property. I mean, that's where the agents on the street can really see their dues dollars at work.
I agree with that. I think when the dues dollars are going into impacting policy, it's money well spent every single time. Like, how can I get more? What's the conversation with the DC people, the politicians, that Congress, the people that can impact policy? They're seeing what's going on.
Yeah,
and
so
NAR has a great relationship. What's the conversation?
We've got a great team in Washington, D.C. with Shannon McGann as our senior vice president over our chief advocacy officer. And she's got great relationships on the Hill. But our elected officials, they're seeing what's been in the news media. And so they're calling, questioning, hey, what's going on? But luckily, we've got the relationships where they're calling us. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And so we're able to have those conversations. But the poor media coverage, it's definitely put us back a step. But I know Shannon and her team are up to the task, and they're ready. They're gearing up for in just a couple of weeks. We're going to have our Realtors legislative meetings, formerly known as mid-year, kind of like the artist formerly known as Prince. And we're going to have thousands of realtors descend on Capitol Hill, and we're going to be able to show our grassroots, show Congress what the power of our grassroots efforts are. by going in and doing hill visits and having the conversation. We're going to have two focuses or overarching focuses for our talking points, and you can get those at flyin.realtor. The first is tax incentives for home and property ownership, and there's going to be a handful of different bills or prospective pieces of legislation that we'll talk about on why it's important to either maintain the tax cuts that were tax incentives put in by Trump in 2017, or create some new ones. And then the second thing is we want to make sure that there's even equal access to professional representation for all consumers, whether they're buyers or sellers, as well as protecting fair housing. And so that you'll see that those are kind of the overarching or umbrella topics, and then we'll have more specific items under those. But any of the folks that are listening and watching can go to flyin.realtor and see our talking points.
And we'll link that up so it makes it easy. So you can just go down and give it a click. So you mentioned Shannon; these are significant. Last thing on I guess this angle, Shannon she's been on the list a long time. I love this list because I look at it every year when it comes out. Shannon's up in the 7-figure, but she's dealing with government affairs. I think that when we talk about our relationship with DC, those are going to be dollars well spent. What's your opinion on just the salaries for staff at NAR? And
so luckily I can revert back to what I said earlier. Staff is the purview of Nykia. She's the CEO.
She's the CEO.
But she handles. So for me, my let
me give you a little more
view
context,
and role with staff is it's a partnership, because we need to be able to work together to accomplish the common mission and goal of our association. That's to make our members more successful. But I'm not going to talk about staff salaries. That's none of my purview.
Okay. Do you believe that members should have a conversation on staffing salary?
The way that members have the conversation, we have a finance committee. We submit a budget to the board of directors, and in that budget, there is money earmarked for staff to pay them for their professional work that they do, to care for our association in the good jobs that they do. So what I'll tell you is that the professional staff that we have definitely earn their paycheck and represent us well. And, on this podcast, I just want to say thank you to them. Thank you, because what they are doing allows me to do what I do, you to do what you do on a daily basis. And that's to help people. I'll say it again: buy, sell, lease, and transfer real property.
And you said it on Jared James' podcast. Shout out to Jared for putting us together. Thank you, Jared. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Yo, Jared.
Yeah, I owe Jared. You mentioned on stage today, dues are not going up over this year or next year.
Correct.
So 2 years. So, I guess part of that conversation, hey, dues aren't going up. There's a $418 million proposed settlement, which looks like today is.
Yeah, the timeline is real now.
Is real, yeah.
So within 30 days, we need to send in, let me break it out. Yeah. 202 million, then 72. But of the 202, within 30 days, we need to send $5 million into the trust fund. That money is going to be used to notice the class. The class will be noticed 120 days out. So the postcards that we've seen some of our clients receive, they're going to be sending those out again. There's going to be digital ads, print ads, all of that same stuff to notice the class. So $5 million then. November 26th is the proposed hearing date for final approval of the settlement. Within 90 days of final approval, so first quarter of 2025, the next $197 million will be due. And then every year on the anniversary of that first payment will be an additional $72 million that is needed. And so last week, the leadership team, the senior vice presidents, we had an outside financial experts come in, and we did a deep dive into the finances of the National Association to figure out how we were going to meet those financial obligations. We do not have anything concrete or definite that I can share, but we at least have the start of a roadmap to be able to make sure that we meet the financial obligation that we've created through this proposed settlement.
Wow. And those, I'm not sure if you can share the discussions of what might get cut or might not get cut. Obviously, it sounds like cuts. To be able to.
So what's going to happen is I'm gonna use the word streamline.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, we have some reserves that we're going to have to tap into. We're going to, everything is on the table, but realistically what we're going to do in a few months time, we'll be meeting, to review the proposed budget for 2025. And yeah, I expect that the senior vice presidents are going to go through all of their programs and say, okay, is there any fat that can be trimmed? Right. First of all,
so if you look
is there fat that can be trimmed? We're not looking to carve out muscle or impact the bone, right? But what can we do to streamline things? And so it's going to be a challenge and an exercise. But we have a fiduciary duty to the members and to the association to make sure that we provide a realistic budget. And hopefully we can streamline things, cut some costs, and be able to fulfill our financial obligation.
Well, I love what you said on stage. It's what's best for the members.
Yep.
That's the mindset that you're taking as president. The budget that has historically been set, you can go back 10 years and look at the budget. It looks the same every single year when you go back and look at it, was set way before you. And so now there's an opportunity to look at it and say, okay, if we need to trim fat, is that salaries? Is that marketing? Where is the fat? Anybody could debate. Maybe there's a debate going on in the comments right now of what the fat is. But that conversation is going to be had maybe for the first time, really.
I hope these cameras are slimming.
That conversation might be had for the first time ever, because we really need to take a look at it and make sure that we're paying what we owe.
And so with every challenge, I try to find the opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to get better.
I agree.
And come out of this, maybe it's going to be a little leaner, maybe it's going to be a little meaner, but it's going to hurt in the short term, and that's part of the way that the settlement works. It was based on an ability to pay, and so, but it's going to give us some great opportunity to figure out what our new strategic direction is going to be for the association.
Yeah, the ability to pay. So. Obviously, there's the $2 billion, under $2 billion, over $2 billion. So you've got all the brokerages, and you said it on stage. Hey, I'm sorry. Let's be clear here, Kevin. It is what it is. You said I'm sorry. This is the deal. $418 million. Plaintiffs want to go after the other brokers, and so that's your position. Obviously, there's brokers that probably feel different. You had a 4.5 hour meeting with a lot of those brokers who were left on the other side of the over $2 billion, and who now have to make a decision. Do they jump in? Do they do nothing? There's decisions that they have to make. So looking at that landscape, what do you think brokers are going to do? Or do you think there's going to be a variety of decisions? Do you think a bunch of them are just going to jump in to the formula that was set for them?
Yeah, so after our meeting on March 22nd, where we invited these affected brokers so that we could just share with them the information as to how we got there. I do know, I don't have exact numbers, but I do know a number of them reached out to NAR legal counsel to get information on the plaintiff's attorney and the route that was taken by some for negotiating some sort of settlement on their own. So yeah, it's they've got 60 days, if I remember correctly, to be able to opt in to either the formula or the non-binding mediation. And, as I said on the stage, my hope is that at the end of the day, when they look at this as a business transaction, that they're able to still say there is a benefit to continuing to belong to the National Association of Realtors, because we're going to be better off and stronger together than we would ever be separate.
The alternative option that you've said this is Chapter 11 bankruptcy, or was chapter before the proposed settlement, right? That was really the other option, or fight it, but really that wasn't realistic based on what you had to.
Yeah, if we continue to fight, the other brokers associations, MLSs, teams that were named, and individual agents that were named in the copycat suits would have to continue to defend themselves if we appealed this decision. The appeal likely would have taken years, and while we did feel that we had strong legal grounds to have the verdict overturned, we likely would have been remanded back to the lower court and had to have another jury trial. Meanwhile, all the copycat suits are continuing on. And yes, everything was on the table for us. And we analyzed what Chapter 11 bankruptcy would look like, and it would have only protected us, the National Association of Realtors. Wouldn't have protected our members, our associations, the MLSs, or the brokers. And so I think as we laid that out, the brokers realized that they were going to be on the hook regardless of the option that the National Association of Realtors took. Of the not so good options.
Of the options, of course, available. I mean, Chapter 11's been an option for a lot of businesses in the past to use as a recovery method. But your position is, if we use that, we're only talking about this one case. All the other cases move forward.
So the National Association would have been stayed from all of the other cases.
Just the National, the brokers.
They would have all been navigating through years of that litigation as we were appealing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it likely would have cost them millions. And we may have seen some of the defendants in the other class action lawsuits at some point or another saying, we're going to declare bankruptcy to protect ourselves. And so it would have just been potentially a tremendous cascade of really bad things happening.
A lot of bankruptcies.
Yeah.
So that's fair. And then is it fair on the other side? There's a lot of brokers that you've probably known for years that make the argument, yeah, but if you look at the pie, that pool of those top performing brokerages have probably paid in the largest percentage into membership dues over the years. They've probably been, I don't have the number, I don't know if you probably don't either, right? But they've probably been the biggest supplier of the dues based on their agent count.
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple mathematical formula. So get the numbers, we can figure it out.
Yeah, and that would be their argument, and obviously they're, that's where they sit on that. So going into the copycats, I'm a little confused. You may know the answer to this. So today, just by happens to be today, it's like, okay, we can move forward with the settlement. The judges approve that. Move forward. They're going to have the preliminary, and they're going to have the hearing in November to confirm that. There was a ruling early April where the judge ruled against consolidating copycat lawsuits. April the 12th, U.S. Judicial Panel, multi-district litigation decided against. So are members, is NAR covered on the copycat lawsuits?
Yeah. So what the panel of judges said was, if the settlement goes through, the consolidation is a moot point.
Okay. Because the settlement covers the copycat lawsuits. Okay,
essentially, all the copycat lawsuits would go away because this is a nationwide settlement. Now, what I'll just say is it would have been better for the judges to say, yes, we believe in the consolidation if the settlement doesn't go through. But instead
they phrased it.
Right. Yeah, we're not going to allow the consolidation because the settlement would take care of it. But so if for some reason the settlement doesn't get final approval, then we'd have to go back and say, okay, well, the settlement didn't happen. Can we consolidate? Because that does make the most sense when it comes to protracted litigation, discovery, and all that stuff, rather than having 24 different lawsuits, 24 different processes for discovery and deposition, all that stuff. No, it makes sense to have it consolidated. But we've got the settlement. We're going to work to get the settlement approved. And if and when it's approved, it's a moot point.
What about the buy side?
Yeah, the buy side, the judge recently said that I think she scheduled a hearing for September of 2027. And what I'll say about the buy side is I need to get this past the settlement approval for the sell side before I can give too much of my limited bandwidth in my brain, towards the buy side.
And it's like a bad sandwich because the DOJ is in the middle, right? Because we're going to get through the settlement and then there's still DOJ. Anything you want to share on that? They're talking about, taking a look at the participation rule, clear cooperation.
I'll talk two things on the Department of Justice. Recently, we heard that a 3-judge panel in the D.C. Circuit ruled in favor of the Department of Justice and overturned a lower court ruling that said the Department of Justice does actually have to honor contractual obligations. So instead, this 3-judge panel 2-1 said, no, the government can renege on agreements that it makes with entities or consumers or businesses, right?
Which is a little ridiculous.
That's a little ridiculous because we deal with contracts on a daily basis, right? And so the fact that the government can now renege on a contract, that's not good for anyone.
Yeah.
But that decision, what it says is the Department of Justice can reopen investigations into things that we thought were solved matters or issues. But ultimately, with the rule changes that we are going to be making, it resolves a lot of what they previously were talking about looking at. But who knows what stone they're going to overturn to try and find something. But so that's that with the Department of Justice. We still have a little time to decide if we will appeal that decision to the full district court or to the Supreme Court. But we need to weigh the pros and the cons before we make a decision there. But that has no impact
on the settlement.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, the second piece of the Department of Justice in the Massachusetts case, the MLS Penn Noslak case, they filed a briefing in mid-February where they finally put pen to paper to say exactly what they were looking for. And they went to the extreme of completely decoupling cooperative compensation and saying it shouldn't be allowed. And instead they said, oh, well, you can pay a buyer rep an hourly wage type of thing. That's what they were offering. And so, the judge in Massachusetts, I do think, cares about what the Department of Justice has to say and what their thoughts are. I don't know if that would be the same for the judge in the 8th District. But the Department of Justice can certainly weigh in on the proposed settlement, but they cannot prevent the judge from approving it. They can offer the judge some insights and something to think about, but ultimately it will be the judge's decision as to whether or not he believes that the class that has been claimed to be harmed will be, satisfied based on the settlement that and the terms that we have. And
all indications are that that's likely to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, we're fully expecting that there will be some objectors. In particular, the plaintiffs' attorneys in some of the copycat suits, they might object because they want their case to go through. But it's the judge is going to take all of the information in. We are going to be standing with the plaintiffs, saying yes, we are for this settlement, and so at least there we'll have a unified front on getting the settlement to final approval.
And listen, guys, this stuff is pretty fluid. It changes. So there's probably more to come on that. Something you said today, which was interesting. I hadn't really heard any commentary on it, so I'm glad you said it. And then I'd love for you to address it here. It's a question that comes up all the time. The three-way agreement, referred to as the tie-in agreement, local, national, local MLS.
Local, state, national.
Yep.
The associations.
Which is really MLS, state, local, whatever, national, right? Those are really the three things that get tied in.
That's not what the three-way agreement has nothing to do with the MLS.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the MLS, so there's a certain percentage of MLSs that are owned by the local association or a combination of local associations.
That's essentially saying the same thing. So Connecticut, for example, you can't have the MLS unless you have your local board. Can't have local board unless you have NAR. So it's saying the same thing because who owns the MLS, right?
But that's not the case everywhere.
Correct. No, every state
right.
There's all kinds of these different agreements. On the ones that have, you don't get MLS unless you have the other ones. Is that changing? Is that fair? It's kind of the way it is right now, but any position on that?
That is not something that I've been part of or privy to any conversations. I don't see anything changing in the immediate future.
And it's one of the arguments where it's like, hey, that might impact, inflate agent count. Agent count has fluctuated over the years. I mean, I remember when 2011, 2012, it was below 1 million. And that was, you made the great point today. Hey, that's market conditions.
Yep.
You top out at 1.6. Now we're, 1.5. There's numbers, projections, maybe 1.4 this year. It fluctuates with the market. Obviously, the market's changing right now.
Yeah, I saw an interesting slide. Dr. Lawrence Yun, our chief economist at the Broker Summit last week, I think he said a typical year, we have a churn rate of about 150,000. Was it 120 or 150? Let's just say it's 150,000 agents. So we have 100 or maybe it was 160,000 left after last year, and 120,000 new have come in. So maybe I was averaging them out for the 150. But so there's a churn rate every year. There's a churn rate of typically 10% of the membership.
Yeah,
turns over, and so I mean there are folks. I've been a realtor since 1994.
You've seen people come and go.
I've seen people come and go. But when you look at it, do the 90-10 rule or the 80-20 rule. That's who's doing the business. A few years ago, my MLS in Massachusetts looked at the numbers. 1/3 of the subscribers of our members did 0 transactions.
Zero, yeah.
The next third did 1 to 2. And so, 2/3 of our dues paying members and dues paying subscribers aren't fully engaged in the business of real estate. And so, it is a fascinating thing to look at when you look at the numbers. So I'm not surprised about the churn rate. The market that we've had over the last 18 months, it's been a lot more challenging. An agent we've had, I don't want to say the number, but let's just say it was close to 500,000 of our members, 400,000+, have been in the business only since 2020. And so think about the agents that got in 2020, 2021, even the first half of 22, the market that they experienced, it'll be interesting to see how many of them can survive in this changed marketplace.
Oh yeah.
And I hope they all do. I hope they all survive and thrive. But the reality is, once you go through a market like we're going through, if they survive, they are going to thrive in years to come.
No question about it. And I hope our buddy Jared James talks about pros versus amateurs. I hope every single pro survives and thrives because it's better for the consumer because of the service they're going to provide. The membership count has always been posted going back to the 70s. And then the staff made a decision to take that off just recently within weeks here off of the site. Maybe that's a legal decision or whatever the decision was. But when members reach out right now to say, hey, we like that report. We want to see that report. Where's that report? They're being pushed back right now to the local. Well, you can go get the local board report, but it's like, well, I want the association report. Why did that access go away after 50 years of it being available to members?
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you.
That's the staff's decision.
I'd have to ask some questions.
Okay.
I don't
because they're replying.
I just don't recall off the top of my head if that was if I was in a room when that conversation happened or not.
But, okay, yeah. Totally understand. They're replying to the emails and they're pointing people back to local, but that doesn't really solve that. So I just got 2 more things. And listen, you've been so giving with your time. So I definitely shout out to Kevin in the comments. Like, give him a shout out. It's unbelievable that you're doing this, especially when you consider that a lot of times it's a video with a teleprompter. A lot of times coming. And this is not that. This is just you and I sitting face to face.
Yeah, I mean, so what I'll say about that, there are definitely a couple of videos I've done where I've had the teleprompter.
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about I'm saying you are way different than that. You're sitting here face to face and cutting it up.
So what I will tell you is there's a critic out there who on my on the road videos thinks that I'm using there's a green screen and a teleprompter, and there's not. I typically do those videos in one take, and it's I know what I want to say. I don't get anything. I ask NAR some questions, get some data, some information points, but it's a message that I'm communicating to the members. So despite what the critic thinks, There's no teleprompter. There's no green screen on my on the road videos. I'm having a conversation with the members the way that I know how. And I specifically told staff, listen, I'm not going to do multiple takes. I don't care if I stumble on a word, because that's the way I communicate when I'm on the stage, when I'm talking to members. Probably here I've been saying a few ums and ahs, but that's what we do. And so I want to be as real as I can. When I was in Montana a couple of weeks ago, I had a member come up to me and say, Kevin, there's a great quote by Teddy Roosevelt, and it talks about the critics and how, you know what?
I have it on my wall.
I don't care about I don't care about the critics of this and that, because you have never been in the arena.
Yeah.
You haven't fought and won or fought and lost. And so for me, I'm going to keep doing what I believe is right for the association, communicating the way that I think is the right way to communicate. I've got people paying attention to what the critics are saying, letting me know what I need to know. But I'm just going to keep doing this because I think it's the right thing for the association. I think it's the right thing for the members. And the fact that we were able to connect and I'm able to do this, I hope that that's just another sign that things are different.
I encourage you to do more of it. I appreciate it. And when I was referring to the teleprompters, there's going to be times where you've got to read a message and deliver a message. And I've said this in the past on pods. I'm like, in comparison to the last, the predecessors' teleprompters, even if he is reading off a teleprompter, he's got to be skipping words because it is coming off authentic. It's natural. And just doing stuff like this is stuff that members haven't seen this from the NAR president. A sit down with Jared, a sit down here on this platform. You didn't screen, by the way, I want to make it clear, you didn't screen a single question. We didn't have a conversation before about what the
only conversation I said, you can ask me anything you want. If I can't answer it, I won't.
That's right. And so.
And there was something I chose not to because
that's right.
That's not my purview.
Yeah.
But no, it's I showed you the pictures of what I did on Sunday and where I was. And that's who I am. I'm just a regular guy.
So a couple, you are, and I really appreciate this. I'm going to give you a couple softballs because you've earned them, right?
Oh, okay.
Any progress at all with, we've heard from Fannie and Freddie and FHA, and I actually love what they've said because they said, hey, nothing's changed here, which to me, they're advocating for, you use the word a lot, they're advocating for buyers. They're advocating for buyers to have representation. There's a lot of veterans that might be wondering, well, where's my advocate right now? It's not in your control, but has it been there? Any progress? Things move slow with VA loans in particular and their ability.
Couple of things. The first, I think I mentioned on stage about the letter that we got from HUD just within the last few weeks, clearly stating that if a seller or a seller's broker offers cooperating compensation to the buyer broker, that it would not be considered an interested party contribution, IPCs, because as we know, HUD, Fannie, Freddie, FHA, sellers can offer concessions. Buyers can get money from other interested parties up to a certain percentage threshold. And what HUD clearly states is that so long as it's normal course of business and typical in the market, they will not count compensation to a buyer's agent as part of that.
It could sit on top. So I think that's a big win.
That's a big win. So now with the VA, we sent a letter to VA. We're having conversations with them, asking them if they can look at their policy that says that the veterans can't pay any fees. Luckily, we've got 18 states that currently have buyer rep contracts as part of their license law or statute. We've got another handful, 5 or so states that have gone through the process or in the middle or close to the end of the process and will be coming online with mandatory buyer rep contracts. So what we need to do is focus on those 18 states that are currently doing it because we know veterans are buying homes there. How are they handling it? And let's find the best practices there so that we can continue to serve the veteran community that is such an honor to be able to do. Realistically, there are some folks that we're nervous could be disenfranchised. First-time home buyers, first-generation first-time home buyers, the consumers in the brown and black community, buyers there, and then the veterans. And so what we need to make sure we do is we up our game so that we can represent as many of these folks as we can, give them the professional service that they so desperately need so that they're not disenfranchised and instead they can achieve the American dream.
Appreciate you saying that. And I know you guys are gonna work on that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's
And then the other piece, and I'm sorry for jumping in.
No, go ahead.
With the conversations that we're having with these entities, Veterans Administration, and everything, think about the policies that are put in place. It took decades for them to write these rules, and so even though we're having the conversation with them now, I'd love to think that we could get change very quickly, but it could be months, years before we see any significant change. And unfortunately, we might need to go to them with some very specific and real examples of how veterans are losing out because of this. And maybe that would help to get them to change the rules. But I don't want to see anybody lose out, but it is a concern for us.
Yeah, nobody certainly wants to see that. Any conversations? We heard, I don't know if you were in the room this morning, Rich Barton let off. Yeah. Why? You got better things to do.
No, well, I had 2 Zooms for NAR. I had a meeting with the CEO of realtor.com. I was across the way at another conference giving an update from the stage. So yeah, my day has been full, and I'm missing the afternoon sessions because I'm spending a little time with you.
I'm going to get you going here in just a minute. So, well, before I ask the Rich Barton question, you said you had a meeting with Damian Eales, CEO of realtor.com. Any thought, what do you think of Damian's op-ed in Wall Street Journal? Did you like that, or did you think there was lacking depth? I thought it was lacking depth, and I'm a partner of realtor.com, and I love Damian. I love that team.
Yeah.
I thought it lacked depth.
So what I will say is any time that we can get a piece in there that says seek professional buyer representation, that's a good thing.
Okay. So you took that out of it and said, okay.
I took that out of it. Yeah. What was it? The 111 things. Is that what it was? Yeah.
That's a separate piece from the op-ed.
Oh, okay.
That's a marketing piece that they have. Yeah.
So, but listen, any time that we can, I see that as positive press, positive news. Yeah. Let's claim the small victory in the larger battle.
Yeah. The 111, that's a marketing, piece. And then he had an op-ed on the Wall Street Journal. I'm going to get a chance to talk. Damian's coming on Knowledge Brokers podcast a couple of weeks, and it's with myself and 2 other of his big partners for MVP. So we're going to be able to hash that out. I just didn't know if you had any quick thoughts on that. Rich Barton said on stage, do not let this thing get broken up. Take the hammer. Don't let him take the hammer down. He's talking about the MLS is really what he's talking about. So curious, Zillow reach out to NAR and say, hey, we're here to fully support in a financial means, legal means. Is Zillow offering support? They don't want to see MLS get broken up. NAR has a lot of influence on MLS. Any calls from them?
Yeah, why don't you plant that seed? Give them a call. Say, hey, any calls to them from them? Not that I'm privy to. That.
There hasn't been discussions between the 2 parties, to your knowledge.
Not that I'm aware of at this point. And if there has, it hasn't risen to any serious level. But I would welcome them. They can give us a call. Be happy to talk about how, as an industry stakeholder, that they're willing to pony up and say, okay, let's make sure that we can save the industry.
Yeah, they get a few bucks.
Yeah,
and they're certainly.
I'd take a call from Andy Florence as well.
Yeah,
had the conversation with Damian. So anyone that's willing to step up and say, hey, we do believe in this industry. We believe so much that we're going to open up our checkbook. Yeah, happy to have that conversation.
Kevin is available, and thank you for making this time available. I want to remind everybody: travel 15 in the last 20 days. That pulls you away from your family. You just sold a family business. You've had some things go on in your family recently, and this isn't easy what you're going through on both sides. So I commend you for that.
Thank you.
And I'm certain, I brought up the salaries and all that stuff. I know it's a sensitive topic probably for a lot of the NAR staff members and all of that. But I'm certain you're pulling money out of your pocket every day. I mean, when you're on the road 15 out of 20 days, money's coming out of your pocket. It's not a cake ride.
Only at the laundromat.
Only at the you can't write that one off. Kevin, thank you. If you want to share any final words with the BAM audience and so many members and so many agents across the country, I'd be happy to let you do that.
Yeah, no, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in. If you lasted the entire time, God bless you.
Oh, I'm certain they did.
But no, the reality is, and I said it from stage, I know I said it earlier, we're going to be stronger together. And so while let me finish with this. One of the things I'm going to ask you a question.
Please. Yeah, I'm open book.
What is the largest room in the world? What is the largest room in the universe?
The largest
room,
like a physical room, or
what is the largest room? So I asked my kids this. You can only ask
an interesting question.
You can only ask
I don't know how to answer
once.
this, but I'll try to give you an answer.
The room for improvement.
Oh,
that's like the biggest room in the world, right? And so I'm sure that there's been all different sorts of comments that have been going on. I don't read them, so I'm sorry, but I will just tell you that. But the reality is that my mentality, and teaching my kids that lesson is, I know that we can be better, and so stick with us. Join with us, participate, be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. I think back to something that James Dwiggins said to me. He was very critical of my very first video that I did after I became president, and it was there was a teleprompter. I started off with my words, and then legal got involved, and it was a modified version. But he just said, Kevin, he says, you need to pick this up. You need to talk to the members, and that's how the on the road videos came about. And it's my message to the members. But we need you all more today, more than ever, because moving forward. In order for us to be successful, we have to stick together, and I do see brighter days on the horizon for us.
You have to give you a lot of credit, because the advice James gave you, pick this up, that's sitting here doing this. I'm sure there's plenty of people, staff, legal, bureaucrats that are pulling strings saying, no, Kevin, but you're making the decision to just move forward and lead. And that's a refreshing sign.
Yeah. So staff doesn't know that I'm doing this with you. Staff didn't know I went over to the gathering and was on stage, but I'll tell them. I'll let them know. And so you'll probably have some NAR folks that listen to the podcast as well, so they can correct my maybe one or two inaccuracies.
We all appreciate you doing it. That's the sign of a leader saying, hey, you know what? Opinions are what they are. I'm going to move forward. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to the interview. Thank you for Kevin for doing the interview. I honor you for sitting down. He has not done one of these face-to-face 60-minute interviews, somebody within the industry. Certainly, BAM's going to be fair down the middle. We're always fastballs down the middle, 99. We're going to keep it fair, but we're going to be critical and ask hard questions. That's the point of this community. We think information across the industry should be shared. It should be accessible to all. It's why we don't have a paywall on nowbam.com. It's why we produce more content than any media company across the industry. We do this through the mediums that real estate agents, professionals, team leaders, and brokers are consuming their content through social media and as well as our website. We're going to continue to do this. We published this interview within 24 hours of sitting down with Kevin. Shout out to the BAM team. Shout out to the editors and the writers working behind to make this happen. As I reflect on the interview I had with Kevin yesterday afternoon, I really, again, I just want to honor him. I want to ask you what questions that I missed. Let me know in the comments, certainly. And I want to point out that we are committed to doing more of this. We're committed to agents of change, making the industry better. It's one of the reasons that we started BAMX. There's information below about BAMX, so that not only can you get information accessible, but you can apply it. If you want to start applying the information, get into BAMX. We're doing content for you every single Friday. Social media content, email content, scripting content. There's courses, live streams, and a community within BAMX. But if it's information like this, we always want to release that directly to you immediately, as soon as we possibly can, with no paywall attached. If we get into tactical showing you exactly how, that's all for BAMX. If you're an enterprise leader, a brokerage leader, you want to talk more about BAMX, let's have a conversation. Or if you're an agent, there's obviously information down below that you can sign up right away. Thank you again to Kevin. Thank you for everyone who listened. Let's move the industry forward and become the agents of change.